Two lights from China which bear absolutely no resemblance to the pictures in the boxes. The first one we'll take a look at is this rather stylish one with a really chunky housing. And the reason I bought this one is because the listing said that it was a 9-watt lamp. It offered 9, 12 and 15 watt lamps. But now it's arrived, the box actually is marked 3 watt. And I'm used to the Chinese suppliers doubling their ratings, but tripling them seems to be a new thing. Maybe they're increasing in efficiency or something like that. So where's the hoppy meter? Let's bring the hoppy meter in and give this a test and see what power it actually is. And I'll plug in the bayonet cap lamp holder. Actually, I'll plug the lamp in first in case it pops when I plug it in, as some things can do. Okay, that's quite bright. Power consumption is 3.45. Let's say 3.5 watts. Power factor is 0.5, which is typical. So yeah, it's a 3 watt lamp. It's not 9 watt as stated in the listing. That's quite annoying. While I'm at this, while I've got the hoppy meter here, let's test the other one. This one I think, hold on, where's its listing? I've looked at one of these fairly recently as well, but let's take another look at one and see if it's changed much. It says 1 watt, which is realistic enough, so let's check that out. Let's connect this into the hoppies, just poke the wires in type terminals. Ugh. Little spark and a pop. Okay, so it's lit and it's displaying 1.3 watts, which is reasonable enough. Power factor 0.44, typically 0.5 power factor with these little power supplies. Okay, I should actually check if the red one is actually the live or the neutral, because technically speaking, if you were poking wires into something, you should put it into the neutral first so the other wire doesn't instantly become live. But yeah, right, let's take a look at these. Oh, that one's cover's popping off its power supply. I'm guessing the power supply, since it's most of the way off, let's pop it all the rest of the way off. It looks like the typical little power supply. I'll just bridge this out with a screwdriver. Looks like a typical little power supply, so common of these units, that is actually designed to fit in the base of a GU10 style lamp, or well, any base really. So I'm guessing it's going to be a bright power chip. It is bright power BP9021A. Can you see that? At some point it will be in focus. Very common chip. It's a minimalist chip. So we've got the mains going, we've got a bridge rectifier, smoothing capacitor here, which is usually 4.7 microfarad. What does it say? 4.7 microfarad, 400 volt. The chip, usually a current sensing resistor, and sometimes, but not always, a snubber network across the actual primary of the transformer. And it's primary side sensing in these ones. The output is just a diode and a small capacitor. And in this case, well, let's take this one to bits. This is a typical sort of 1 watt cabinet light, and it's got a swivel joint here, which is actually just based on the round end of this just rammed into a sleeve. And it works okay. When you tilt it to an extreme, it doesn't go too far that it nips the wire. Everything is just sized properly. And when you pop this open, let's just pop it right out of that at the moment. Is this going to come out right? No, it's not. When you pop the end of it open, it will be the lens holding an LED in place. It will be a sort of Luxian star-ish type of LED, which has got some heatsink compound in the back. Oh, it's quite a large channel in there, in the back. And fundamentally that's it. Though it's a sort of Luxian star style, it's much smaller. And it's a standard, well, this looks like a 3 watt LED just soldered onto that. So you could modify it, you could change it and adapt it to suit yourself. You know, you could change the colour if you so wanted. It's a very simple construction. It's a very nice construction. And the idea is that when you screw the cover on, it should hopefully pinch that LED down snugly onto the back, although I'm sure I've had them before that when you screwed it down, it didn't snug that on quite tightly enough. the lens could still move, and that indicated that it wasn't actually sandwiching it against the back. But in this case, it's stopping turning before it reaches fully in, so it is actually sandwiching that lens tightly, which is good. That means the LED is being pushed into good thermal contact with the back. Yeah, so that's a nice little light. But let's take a look at this one. I'm guessing that this will be a very similar construction. It's a COB based light, and one of the first things I'm noting is that the actual COB in there is not perfectly lined up. It's got a slight sort of non-full moon look. I always find it amazing how they put such fine threads in such large objects, particularly the ones with really fine fins. So this looks like a Luxian Starish style panel again, but with the COB array on it and grey heatsink compound. That's loose again. And theoretically that is then held in by this plastic lens, which has this sort of recesses to go over the solder joints for the wires. So that could theoretically be lined up. It wasn't really well lined up in the first place. And if it's the usual case, then these rings are just a nightmare to get back on again. Sometimes they just don't quite catch the right thread. In this case they have. And the LED still looks out of alignment at the back. I'll maybe have a wee go at that later on. I like the lens. It's got this sort of diffuse section in the middle. Sort of prismatic section, then this sort of well, I say the lens collimator is probably a better description of this type of arrangement. And then it's got this sort of optics at the side that channel the light up sort of prism style and fired out the front. Quite neat. The back usually just screws off. Feels quite stiff. No, it's loosened now. And I'm guessing this is probably going to be something very similar to this, if not an identical module. Wrapped as a token gesture in transformer tape. Yeah. Similar module, slightly different layout I think. Nah, the component layout is more or less the same. There's the supply coming in through a bridge rectifier, smoothing capacitors, 2.2 microfarad, 400 volt, that's a bit cheap. The chip, probably a bright power again. No, it is not. It's an HXS 9125. HXS 9125. I don't recognise that. 9125, isn't that very similar to a bright power number? Not sure. It's the same sort of arrangement, the transformer, with the primary sensing. 1 sense resistor and a little capacitor across there. And then the output is once again a diode and capacitor. Intriguing. I think I'll go and take a look at that chip and see if I can find what that is. I'm guessing it is just an alternative brand that's sort of based on the bright power chips. Right, I'm going to go and check that right now. And that drew a complete blank. The only reference to HXS 9125 I could find on the internet was some Chinese sellers that said no longer stocked. It's as if it's maybe appeared, maybe not been reliable or popular, and then it's disappeared, or maybe bright power won the war and they are the dominant chip, so to speak. So this is really nicely machined. That's one of the nicest things about these, is just how well made they are. It's a really neat design. It's interesting that it really has been machined, because you can see little burrs at the side, maybe from the cutting head. Or has this been cast and then cleaned up? I'm not really sure. It's very nice. It's very stylish. For the cost, it's worth it just for the sort of like the heatsink finned component in the first place, and then adapt it to whatever suits your fancy, so to speak. And the lens is smart too, and indeed the retaining ring. It's just nicely made. Again, it's mass produced, isn't it? It's a really popular thing, a lamp. And I'll also guess that the base, because this is a screw-on arrangement, you'll also get the bases like the bayonet cap and the Edison screw that go on the back of this standard housing. So yeah, Some more interesting lamps from China, all very neatly engineered. Not necessarily, well, definitely not noise free. A lot of these things produce a lot of electrical noise that annoys the people with interests in the sort of radio spectrum, the radio frequency spectrum, where because it just creates, well, it obliterates certain frequencies, RF frequencies. But just, optimized, they work. And, well, ultimately that's all they have to do to a degree is just bang out some light and do their job.